I beg your pardon.
Hello fellow noir enthusiasts, my name is Miriam, welcome back to my channel. Today we're here to talk about film noir queen Barbara Stanwyck, because I have today 4 recommendations for noir films of hers that I think deserve more attention, that don't usually get mentioned as much. And while I certainly love her more famous contributions to the noir universe, such as Double Indemnity, The Strange Love of Martha Ivers, or Sorry Wrong Number, I also love lesser known titles like the ones I'm going to mention in today's video, because on different gradations and with different results, they also are, in my view, fabulous examples of Barbara's range and her genuine ability to create memorable performances and full-fledged characters with the most diverse materials.
I'm tired of looking after men. I want to be looked after.
The first noir I want to talk about is Clash by Night, a film released in 1952, directed by Fritz Lang. It is a movie that introduces us to the character of May Doyle, played by Barbara Stanwyck, whose return to her coastal hometown ignites a tempest of conflicted emotions, unfulfilled desires, and the complexities of human relationships. It also stars Paul Douglas, an actor that I highly admire, not your usual face in film noir, even though he contributed to it as well with fine performances. Also another member of noir royalty, none other than Robert Ryan, newcomer then Marilyn Monroe, before making it very big in 1953, and also Keith Andes. Also around the time Clash by Night was released, Marilyn Monroe iconic nude calendar photos appeared, and this really caught Hollywood by storm, and she was often referred as Calendar Girl during those years. It was based off a pre-war play by Clifford Odets with a screenplay by Alfred Hayes. Incidentally, Robert Ryan, who has a significant role in the film, had played the part of Joe Doyle in the original play. Barbara's character's brother, played by Keith Andes in the film. This film was heavy on social atmosphere and a certain look like cinema verite, neo-realism, because of the expert hands of cameraman and cinematographer Nicholas Musuraca. It is quite an evocative film, using the environment almost like an extra character. This film doesn't take place in your usual film noir setting, and because of the nature of the play and what unfolds, it truly benefits from this way of using the environment with allegorical purposes. Clash by Night was shot in Monterey, California, and Nick Musuraca spent some time before the shooting started filming documentary pieces around the area that clearly inform and affect the characters in the story. This practice really impressed the producers of this film, and several of these pieces made it into the opening credits and later on as powerful shots of crashing waves and cloudy skies that really mirror what the characters are feeling and experiencing, further enhancing the tempestuous nature of the relationship between Earl and May, between Robert Ryan's character and Barbara Stanwyck's. The film was produced by Harriet Parsons, the daughter of Luella Parsons, for the Jerry Walt Norman Krasna unit of RKO. Barbara Stanwyck's portrayal brings to life a character caught between the love of 2 men, torn between 2 realities, facing social constraints and expectations in a close-knit community, and like in all Fritz Lang movies, bursting with violence and turmoil. So what I personally like the most about Clash by Night is precisely that fact. The idea that Barbara Stanwyck is in the middle of this very unbalanced love triangle, having to decide on what kind of life she wants to lead, especially portrayed by someone as majestic as Barbara Stanwyck. Also, Robert Ryan plays a film projectionist, which always adds to the value of the movie. The chemistry between them is ambivalent, but at times scorching hot, and seeing their dynamics also with Paul Douglas and the constant reminder of Nicholas Musuraca, fantastic cinematography with his captivating allegorical shots. And aside from that, watching Marilyn Monroe in one of her more substantial supporting roles in film noir before she released films like Niagara and propelled her to stardom, it is all in all an enthralling experience that I think every film noir enthusiast has to live.
I thought I told you 4.
You said a couple.
Well, how much is a couple?
To me, 3.
Barbara's characteristic voice opens over the next film I wanted to discuss in today's video, which is also perhaps one of the most forgotten and overlooked films of the four that I will be discussing today. I'm talking about Jeopardy, released a year later in 1953 and directed by a filmmaker that I highly admire, John Sturges, better known for his action films and thrilling westerns such as The Magnificent Seven or The Great Escape, but a filmmaker who has a very interesting filmography, who in this case also offers lots of action in only 69 minutes. So what truly feels as an extended crime television episode is this lesser known gem that is also a mix of genres if you look at it closely, but has enough noir value for me to include in today's video. It is a gripping tale that starts when a family formed by married couple Doug and Helen Stillwell and their little son Bobby go on a trip down Baja California, and while on that trip their little son Bobby gets his foot stuck in a rotting jetty, and while his father Doug, played by Barry Sullivan, tries to help him, the whole jetty collapses and the father's leg gets trapped as the tide starts to rise. So essentially Jeopardy is a race against the clock, with Helen, Barbara Stanwyck, as the action hero of the story, which makes it even more enticing. To add more sauce to the mix, she crosses paths with an escaped convict played by Ralph Meeker, incidentally the only one who can help her. So the movie perversely poses the question, to which lengths is she willing to go to save her husband? As you can see, the plot is really thin, but what is really gripping about this film is the action and how the story unfolds right to the very end of this movie. What I really love about the film is the chemistry between Ralph Meeker and Barbara Stanwyck. This is a very physical film, and it is really interesting to see Barbara playing not only these intense scenes, but also the command in other scenes in which the body expression has to be contained and has to be alluring. It is wonderful to observe Barbara Stanwyck take hold of the story and of her character, and also of Ralph Meeker's character. The story, like the one in Sorry Wrong Number, was based on a radio play by Maurice Zimm called A Question of Time. Zimm also wrote the original story upon which The Creature of the Black Lagoon is based, and worked for television, namely writing several episodes of Perry Mason. This radio play was adapted for the screen by suspense writer Mel Dinelli, also worth mentioning as the writer of noir films that I highly appreciate, such as Beware My Lovely, The Window, or The Spiral Staircase, and he worked for television as well. Jeopardy was an MGM production, a studio for which John Sturges directed some of his most prominent early westerns, but prior to that he had been hired by Columbia, where he directed many noir B films. For Barbara, this was a film that came after a year-long hiatus, initially intended as the beginning of her retirement after completing Clash by Night. Luckily for us, she couldn't stay away from acting for too long. In 1953, Ralph Meeker was really starting to make a name for himself, and he would go on to appear in noir classics such as Kiss Me Deadly or Big House USA. He appeared in legendary films, and he had a knack for playing this kind of sleazy but empathetic characters. He is always an actor I look forward to seeing in a movie. So I highly recommend Jeopardy as well if you have never watched it. 69 minutes of a clever, action-packed movie with Barbara Stanwyck and Ralph Meeker. I think it's something you can't say no to. Equally gripping is Witness to Murder, a movie released in 1954 and directed by Roy Rowland, a film that thrusts Stanwyck again into a plot filled with danger. This time her own life is at stake, but most of all a movie that highlights how frighteningly easy it was at that time, and in general I guess, to gaslight women especially. It has been pointed out before that it was released a few months before Rear Window, and there are similitudes between the two movies. In Witness to Murder, Barbara Stanwyck plays an interior decorator who lives alone in her apartment, passion, and as the title reveals, she witnesses a murder through her apartment window, one committed by George Sanders in a new sinister role like the ones that were so up his alley. And as she calls the police, he has covered up all evidence, so despite her efforts, nobody believes her. The detective in charge, played by Gary Merrill, which makes for an All About Eve reunion of Gary Merrill and George Sanders, is sympathetic towards her, but deep down also believes that she's making up this story.
There you go again. How can you know?
Because I feel it.
Woman's intuition, a fine reason to pin a murder rap on somebody.
But that's not the end of what the cast of this film has to offer, for we also have trivia fact: Gloria Graham's sister, Joy Holworth, who was also a bit part and extra player in several movies, playing here a co-worker of Barbara Stanwyck's of the studio she works for. Screenplay in this case was by Chester Erskine, who was also the film's producer. The plot has holes.
Don't let them get you down. Always remember, it could be worse tomorrow.
That's what I'm afraid of.
But they are made up by the wonderful performances and also by John Alton's cinematography, another one of the greatest noir cameramen. This is a film similarly to Jeopardy, in which the tension keeps building right until the end. It is a suspenseful movie in which Barbara Stanwyck's performance keeps us on the edge of our seats, illustrating again the timeless theme of a protagonist fighting against the world that refuses to believe her. So Witness to Murder not only serves as a very engaging and fun suspenseful noir, but also serves once more as a showcase for Stanwyck's ability to breathe life into complex female characters. And the last film I wanted to include in today's video is Crime of Passion, a film in which Barbara Stanwyck is Kathy Ferguson, an avid worldly newspaper columnist who falls in love, who can blame her, with police detective Bill Doyle, played by Sterling Hayden. It is one of those instances in which opposites attract. They couldn't be more different.
You tell me now, what better ambition than to find a happy marriage, have children and a home?
Propaganda, not for me.
But they end up getting married, and in true noir fashion, that only means that their union is doomed from the get-go. She already knew it, but it becomes painfully clear that marriage is totally alien to Kathy. So after getting married, without a proper outlet for all her professional drive and ambition, she starts working on her husband's career progression, but her schemes take her too far. It is another instance in today's video in which Barbara's role has to do with the contradictions and frustrations with what was considered then the go-to role for women, with her performance bringing out the restlessness and unhappiness those days, which ties in very well with the role of May Doyle in Clash by Night. However, in 1957, it was already clear that audiences were changing, and perhaps these roles and these considerations were a bit ahead of their time. In Crime of Passion, she is surrounded, as I said, with Sterling Hayden, but also with Raymond Burr and Fay Wray, who play a married couple. I truly love the cast in this movie. This would be, for both Barbara Stanwyck and Raymond Burr, their last film noir contributions before moving on to television. So this film is truly a testament to their legacy in film noir. It was written by Joe Isinger, also the author of the brilliant screenplays of noir classics such as Gilda, and in this case as well, he dives deep into the complexities of love, of ambition, and of deception. It was directed by Jared Oswald, who incidentally directed many episodes of Perry Mason. It is very worth mentioning its cinematographer, the great Joseph Lachelle, who won an Oscar for Laura, and whose superb work can also be appreciated in Crime of Passion. Also, legendary editor Verna Fields, mostly known for her work in films such as American Graffiti or Jaws, participated in this film as sound effects editor. Crime of Passion, whose only defect in my view is its title, is a solid film and a great opportunity to watch Barbara Stanwyck in her final contribution to the noir universe. And with that concludes my list of 4 overlooked Barbara Stanwyck film noir classics. I hope you got a few ideas for films to discover or rewatch soon. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, all the best. Thank you for your support, and remember,
Home is where you come when you run out of places.